All right, dude, we are live. What's up, guys? This is Dem Keys, and today we're going to be doing first of all, a shorter stream, but also a bit on the quieter side because reasons. Today we are not doing a BREADCAM stream. Today we are just going to be doing a bit of research. Also, unfortunately, my tech doesn't seem to be cooperating with me, which is why we don't have the Matrix rain, unfortunately. Um, but that's fine because mainly we're going to be exploring connectors because I've been doing research on cyberdecks and the whole concept of cyberdecks, and it's been interesting. It's been very informative. It's been very educational because I um, I had the wrong idea of what cyberdecks were based on the videos that I was seeing on social media. I was seeing a whole bunch of people. The majority of the cyberdeck videos that I was seeing were people uh, building their cyberdecks using a Raspberry Pi and some sort of display, and then there would be, of course, the keyboard and mouse. And on the Raspberry Pi, they would install some sort of Linux-based OS, and that's what I thought a cyberdeck is. I thought you're essentially just building a computer inside a not so ideal case, but that's not at all what cyberdecks are. Especially if you try to go based off of the interpretation of the 1980s literature. I believe the book was called Neuromancers or just Neuromancer. I think it was Neuromancers. It's written by William Gibson, and I don't know if more people were involved, but this is the main person, William Gibson, as far as I know. And this person, uh, they created this entire universe in which there's actually no, wait, no, I don't want to try and give a full rundown of what that universe was like because I myself don't have a full idea. But within this universe, there was the concept of cyberdecks, which were essentially devices that people would make that would help them that would help them interface with the virtual world, um, or with cyberspace. And the idea here is that we are creating these devices that are not made by, that are not like mass produced devices. These are devices that are made by us, and they are for our specific, like they're our personal devices. They may not necessarily be suitable for, you know, everyone. They are purpose built, and they are built not with a personal touch. They are built with a person's like personal. They are built for a certain person, right? So a person is going to build their cyber deck based on how they want to interact with it, and they also build it with a certain purpose. These are purpose built devices. They're meant to do specific things. They're not meant to be, general purpose computers that are mass produced by, whatever XYZ massive cooperation corporation. Sorry, they're not, meant to be general purpose computers that are mass produced by XYZ corporation. Um, and yeah, I mean, oh, there's also another aspect to it, which is you're not necessarily manufacturing something new to build this with. You're salvaging older tech or older things. You're salvaging older things. Like, for example, you take, I don't know, a calculator, and you stick like an ESP32 on it, and you can stick a screen on it. You can change the screen. You can also repurpose the calculator's own keypad to do things. And just like that, you have a cyber deck. That cyber deck can be used for various purposes. The idea is that this thing, it helps you. You would be communicating, you would be interacting with this device in some way. You, the human being, would be interacting with this device in some way, and this device helps you do a certain thing. It has a certain purpose. So you're not limited to just um, you know a Raspberry Pi with a screen and a keyboard and a mouse. That's not the only thing that you can do, and that's not the only thing that classifies, or that is categorized, qualifies, that's the word. That's not the only thing that qualifies as a cyber deck. In fact, that, if anything, it's less of a cyber deck interpretation than if you built something that's very, very like purpose built. It has like a very specific use case, and it's customized, it's personalized to you specifically, even in terms of uh, taking input. Because it turns out, okay, in the literature, in the novel, or in the story, in William Gibson's version, generally people interacted with these things using a neural interface, a neural link, I think they called it. I don't remember. um, but I mean, we don't have that. Yeah, I mean, we're developing that right now, but we don't have like a very it's not a very widely used mechanism right now. So in our case, we do have plenty of other widely used mechanisms, and we can that's what I plan on using. And I was kind of glad that I did the research on this. I was kind of glad that I just realized that I've been flashbanging the entire stream. Well, flashbanging whoever's watching this, even in the VOD. Let me change the color scheme. I actually forgot that Wikipedia has a dark mode. The other pages, I'll have to refresh them. Give me a second. I actually opened up a bunch of these. So I was doing research um, on. Give me a second. Here, I was doing research on what do you call it? What do you call it? Cyberdecks. Yeah, I was doing research on cyberdeck hardware, and one part of the hardware is the connectors as well. If you are having a physical connection, because in my case, fortunately, I'm using an ESP32. Um, Give me a second. This thing is getting a bit loud, and uh, we don't seem to be having any luck with this. What do you call it? Matrix Rain RTMP feed, anyways. So I'm just gonna shut it off. Okay. So what was I saying? Yeah, so in terms of building CyberDeck hardware, I should actually export this entire conversation when I get a chance, because this has been very informative for me. Give me a second. There's a method to share the conversation, but I'm not looking to share the conversation. I'm looking to export the conversation. What I could do is I could add this to a notebook and then have Notebook LM summarize it, and then see if there's some way to export that conversation, because this has been incredibly informative. I knew nothing about cyberdecks, and it turns out cyberdecks, they have like a there's a certain philosophy behind them. There's a certain spirit of cyberdecks, and I want to make this clear. I'm not shitting on cyberdecks that are Raspberry Pis with screens attached to them. That is great in its own right, because what that has done is that has made people explore Raspberry Pis and explore other forms of computing. They There's a bunch of people now that know how to build their own like separate computer. They're not limited to just using a phone, just using a laptop, or they these people now know how to essentially assemble their own computer to a certain extent. And it being a Raspberry Pi, it helps them out a lot because if they're trying to do some sort of work, generally people are using, computers these days for that. So having a single board computer, which is a Raspberry Pi, which is what a Raspberry Pi is, and having a display attached to it, and being able to connect like peripherals, and maybe if you need Wi-Fi or if you want to have a wired connection, being able to do all of this stuff, um, it's great. The fact that they're able to set something like this up for themselves. These people have learned how they can set up a computer just real quick. If they ever need a computer for a certain purpose, they can set one up. So this has gotten people to explore Raspberry Pis. This has gotten people to explore Linux. There are plenty of people who hadn't explored Linux before. This has gotten people to explore, let's say, hardware in general. To a certain extent, I guess we can say electrical engineering. But it's gotten people to explore computers from a different perspective. And I'm sure it has taught people a lot of things as well, which is awesome, which is great. So, in its own right, those devices, in their own right, they are considered cyber decks. My thing was, before I tried to build something like that, I wanted to get a proper understanding of exactly what a cyber deck is. So I got Gemini to explain it to me, and then Gemini took me through, the entire like history of it. I guess I can read like a tiny bit. I did read a tiny bit of it on stream previously. Um, so I'd asked. I'm not going to read out what the question was that I'd asked to Gemini, but this is the answer that Gemini had given. I'm going to read like a small, let's say, excerpt of it, and then we're gonna go back to reading about the connectors. Give me a second here. Okay, all right. So Gemini said this: "You've hit on a fascinating intersection of science fiction trope and DIY subculture. The short answer is no. It doesn't strictly need to be a keyboard and mouse, but the definition gets blurrier the further you move away from them. Technically, a cyberdeck is a cultural construct born from the 1980s cyberpunk literature, specifically William Gibson's Neuromancer." Okay, so it's Neuromancer, singular, not plural. By the way, there's also an audiobook of Neuromancer. I was listening to it earlier. I believe the narration was done by William Gibson himself. I'm not sure. You'll have to check. But there is an audiobook, and um, there are other people's own narrations of Neuromancer as well. So you can find a bunch of different versions on YouTube. Okay, so what actually defines a cyber deck? In the real world, make what In the real world maker community, a cyber deck is generally defined by intent rather than a specific input method. To be a quote unquote deck, it usually needs one, portability, two, aesthetics, and three, specialization. So, portability means it's not a desktop. It's meant to be used in the field. Aesthetics. Okay, cyberdecks do. Sorry, the Raspberry Pi based cyberdecks do actually um, they do actually meet that requirement, because these are essentially portable computers. Like, you can move them around, especially given the fact that people have made their own. There are people who have made them into, like, cases, briefcases, and different types of boxes and stuff, so they can just carry the thing around. All they would need is, in terms of wiring, what they would need uh, is an adapter, a Raspberry Pi adapter, and I guess in terms of input, they could technically use a wireless keyboard and mouse, but there are a lot of people who are building the even the keyboard directly into the whatever case they're using. That becomes part of the aesthetic. So it's not like a separate peripheral, but like you can do that. Okay, then in terms of aesthetics, it usually looks high tech, low life. So it's rugged, customized, or salvaged. And then in terms of specialization, it's often built for a specific task, such as hacking, radio monitoring, terminal access, etc., rather than being a general purpose laptop. Okay, all right. Now, that being said, some of the connectors that Gemini had suggested to me. So I have a couple of options, right? Okay, here's the idea that I got, and this is why I'm glad that I looked into cyberdex, the concept of cyberdex. This is why I'm glad that I tried to understand the concept of cyberdex, because this gave me the idea that I could build a bunch of different devices, and none of these devices need screens on them. None of the devices need screens on them. What I can do is I can give them the ability to be interfaced with using a terminal. So then I can build one terminal device, and that terminal device can interface with a bunch of these different other devices that are essentially more or less black box devices. I mean, they're not literally black box devices because I'm building them, but more or less black box devices because they don't really give you any sort of um, they don't really give you much in terms of output. Um, Maybe there might be lights on them. That's one form of output, but they definitely don't have what do you call it? Displays on them. A lot of the devices that I'm going to be building in this way, and I'm kind of glad that I'm taking this approach because my main reason for taking this approach was that didn't I wasn't comfortable with joining two different circuits together. So I wasn't comfortable with joining an ESP32 circuit with, let's say, uh, an atomizer circuit. Even if the atomizer circuit is a 5 volt circuit, or it takes a 5 volt input, and the ESP32 dev board can also take a 5 volt input. I wasn't comfortable with connecting both of them to the same source, and it would be a little inconvenient to have two separate power banks connected. I could do it, but then things just start to become a little more expensive at that point. So the idea that I had was I'm going to use an optocoupler to maintain isolation, and technically, I guess I can also use. Well, okay, it's not only going to be an optocoupler. It could be an optocoupler. It can also be a relay module. So if I'm trying to control something that's connected to like the wall socket. Where I live, our wall sockets give out 240 volts AC, and what I'm working with is meant to be DC. So usually, or well, most of the appliances that we work with, um, I don't want to say that for sure. I was about to say that most of the appliances that we work with, they're DC, but with the bigger, more higher power appliances, I don't know how true that is. I can't say that for sure because I've heard that the higher the voltage and power consumption of the appliance becomes, the more beneficial it becomes to use AC instead of DC. I'm not sure. I haven't done too much research on that front, so I can't say anything for sure. Um, but yeah. Uh, Anyways, the point is a lot of the electrical appliances that we are working with, especially like electronic devices. Let's say your simple electronic devices, if they're being connected to um, if they're being connected to the wall socket, there's a decent chance that there's some sort of step down transformer or some sort of converter that's converting the 240 volts AC down to um, 5 volts or 9 volts or 12 volts or whatever DC. What was I saying? Sorry, zoned out. Um, yeah, where, how did I get to this? Yeah, so my thing is I wanted to um I wanted to use the ESP32 as more or less just a controller circuit, nothing more. It's not meant to power anything, and so if it's just a controller circuit, I should be able to attach batteries to it and power it in that way. The usual, AA consumer batteries, they're good for like a one-time use, but they're not rechargeable. And so I wanted to get 18650 lithium ion batteries because I also have a bunch of the charger modules for those batteries, charging and using modules. It's a TP4056 uh, charger module, so you can connect the Lion battery to the module, and you can connect whatever um, device you want to power from the battery also to the module, and that way you can use the battery through the module, but you can also then charge the battery. I believe without having to disconnect whatever circuit you are powering. I'll have to see. I'm not entirely sure about that. What I could do is I could set up like a connector kind of situation if it does happen to be the case that I have to disconnect the ESP32 if I have to charge these things. Um, then I could set up like a, what I could do in that case. This just occurred to me because I was thinking about this before. I was like, maybe I might need to make my own battery packs. That might be a necessity. Not a necessity, but a possibility, and something that could actually work out quite well. Maybe I could set up my own battery packs. These I could get like one. I could get like a singular 18650 battery holder, and I can put the battery in that, and then I can connect. I can stick a TP4056 module to the bottom of that holder and connect the wiring, and just like that I have a power bank. That's more or less a power bank because the TP 4056, um, this module takes 5-volt input, so I can connect a phone charger to it to charge the battery whenever need be. And the end of the module that's supposed to be connected to the device, I can instead connect these kinds of connectors. You have this JST connector, you have TRS, though TRS is more, hold on, not TRS, TRRS. Yeah, these kinds of connectors. A lot of times, like or the majority of the time, we see this being used for audio related stuff, right? But if it's basically just, uh, two power lines, so plus and minus, and maybe one or two data lines, then we could very easily use this as well for some sort of communication. I have to do more research on the various types of these connectors, because this is a lot more easier to just like quote unquote jack in. If I need to, like, let's say I make a terminal, and I want to be able to very easily communicate between my terminal and whatever the other device is. If this audio thing has enough data lines, I actually don't think it's going to have enough data lines. That might be a problem. I'll have to see. Or I could. It depends on how the communication is taking place, to be honest, because I want to make these devices that I'm building to be interfaceable with a terminal, just so I can make them like black boxes that I can jack into each time. That sounds weird. But anyways, essentially jack into, like, I can plug the uh I can plug into. I'm just gonna say jack into. I can jack into these black boxes using um with my terminal, and then in my terminal I'll have, whatever control mechanism I need. So I could set up something using Ratatouille, for example. I can have a full menu based system that lets me choose things. I can have like a simple terminal that accepts commands in hex form or whatever. There's a bunch of different there's a bunch of ways that I can go about this. Give me a second here. Okay, all right. So this is one of the things. Oh yeah, back to what I was saying. So yeah, I could do this. This is one option that I have. Though it's worth mentioning, it's worth noting that if I do make these as, little mini power banks that I can charge whenever need be, which would actually be pretty great as like a modular system, because if I know that I have multiple um, of these little black boxes that I'm making for, specific purposes, then I can build multiple tiny power banks that I can just attach to the black boxes. And whenever need be, I can unplug it, replace it um, with a new charged up quote unquote power bank, and we are good to go. Now that I think about it, additionally, I could attach LEDs, so I can have like a very simple circuit that I'll set up, and I can have LEDs show the that would show the, what do you call it? I could have LEDs that would show the battery percentage, but like, simplified down to maybe 10 points. So I can, instead of showing like fractions, instead of showing like granular percentage, I could just have 10 LEDs to show 10 different percentages. So, you know, 0%, 10%, 20, 30, 40, whatever, up to 90%. I could have something like that. Um, Give me a second. Okay. All right. So, wait, I didn't check. Are we dropping frames? Oh shit. At some point in time, we were dropping frames. Uh, Anyways. Okay. So I was looking into connectors, and there's a couple of different options that Gemini gave, and not all of them are suitable for plug and play. Some of these connectors, like I feel like this is a great example, the JST connector. If you look at the if you look at the design, it's great for once in a while, plug and unplug. So like you, if for example, you have actually the battery example that I'd given, that's a great example of this. Um, if I make my own little power banks, I can set them up to have these kinds of connectors, and then on whatever device I'm making, I can also have this kind of a connector which goes directly into the 3.3 volt pin and into ground. And because generally these devices that I'm building, they're meant to be. This is a philosophy that I'm following. I want to make these devices as low power consumption as possible. Um, make them have as low power consumption as possible. Um, that way, I don't have to replace the battery as often. I don't have to recharge the thing as often. I can just set it and forget it for, how many ever months. Um, so for that purpose, this kind of connector actually works really well. Though, that being said, to be fair, I haven't explored all of the connectors because like right now I'm seeing this one. This looks like slightly different than the PH one. So you have different types of JST connectors. They have an entire like thing here of the different types of connectors that are available. I still have to look through all of them. Who knows? Maybe I might find something that's, you know, suitable for plug and play. I wish they had more images here. Unfortunately, they don't. Uh, I haven't. Okay, DC connector. A DC connector is an electrical component that, you know what? I didn't look into this. There's also pinhead connector. Oh, dude, yeah, I didn't think about this. This is a actually no, I did think about this. I thought about this in the beginning. Yeah, I thought about this in the beginning. This is definitely an option, a great option, in fact. Basically, I would be using jumper wires. So you have the male pin header, and that's the pin, and then you have the female pin header in which the male pin header slots in. So we can either have um, our connection be to um, be to we can either have our connection be the male pins, or we can have our connection be the female pins. And then on the other end, it's going to be the opposite of that. Give me a second. There's something that I was supposed to do that I forgot. Yeah. So yeah, this is an option. Electrical connector. Let's see what shows up in this. Okay, some common coaxial DC power connectors. Common male DC power connectors. These don't these look like the oh yeah, this is a power connector. I was looking at this and I was like, that looks more like an audio sort of thing. So there's also the fact that oh, DIN connectors were definitely mentioned by Gemini. So I opened up a separate thing here. Even Molex was mentioned. I doubt I'm going to be using Molex because of how rough it is. It's um, it's definitely not loose, so that's a good thing about it. But like a lot of times you'll find this in power supplies. Um, Actually, the only time I've seen these connectors is in power supplies. Then you have the RJ11 and RJ45 cables or pins, plugs. RJ11 was used for phone line, and RJ45 was used for is still actually it's the Ethernet cable. Um, I might actually use this. Like this is honestly this is a valid option and probably a decent option too, because this gives me a lot of data points, a lot of data lines. So you have wait as used for RJ45S, RJ49, and so and so. I'll have to see how many data lines does. Oh, that's what RJ stands for. I just got that. Okay. RJ stands for registered jack. So my assumption here is that we have one power line, one ground line, and then all data lines. Or it could just be, multiple power lines to represent the data and one ground line, or one power line and multiple ground lines to, again, represent the data. Uh, what are we looking at here? RJ45 for one single pair data line with programming resistor. I could use something like this. The thing is, for this kind of a, oh, you know what? Actually, it's a good thing I remembered that because the connector that I choose, it's going to depend on the durability, or sorry, maintainability. It's going to depend on the maintainability of the thing as well. Because while I could, keep on buying cables. I actually don't want to keep buying cables. In terms of, being able to communicate between my own little cyber deck and my black box devices, if we are talking about like a physical connection, because there's going to be each of these are all ESP32 devices, so they're all going to have ESP now capabilities. So to a certain extent, I can use them at least for sorry, to a certain extent I can use Wi-Fi capability, at least to report back information, right? So if it's to send one-off kind of data. However, if I want a proper session where I'm able to program this device and I want to be able to see a bunch of information and all of that stuff, then I would prefer to have I would prefer to be physically jacked in, because through a wired connection, um, I might be able to get more data while still using the least amount of power. I think so. With a wired connection, I might be able to, yeah, I might be able to achieve that. It would be so much simpler if I could just turn on the Wi-Fi, but then turning on the Wi-Fi would use a lot more power. I mean, I can measure that. I can check how long it takes, because if it doesn't take that long, um, I could just make it Wi-Fi then. Yeah, I could just make it Wi-Fi. So we can have low power communication over ESP now, and we can have high power communication over Wi-Fi. Uh, Hold on, DIN. This is the one. So DIN connector. This is also from like back in the day. This is these kinds of connectors were used, I believe, for keyboard and mouse and a couple of other things maybe. You used to have these kinds of connectors on CPUs back in the day. You would get motherboards that literally had these kinds of connectors. These days, I don't think you get them anymore. These days, they are pretty much phased out, because the majority of, like, even keyboard and mouse, they are not these kinds of connectors anymore. They're USB. So, I mean, I could use this. This is one option, definitely. There's also something called a mini DIN. And okay, what I choose here is going to depend on the amount of data lines. I want to have as many data lines as possible, in case if I need to, set up my own little, because I have this thing in my mind where, or I have this idea. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to implement it, but I have this idea where I establish a proper session over the wire to control this device, or program it, or set various variables and stuff like that obviously all of that will need to be programmed for each of these devices. All that needs to be programmed. So it's going to be more complicated or less complicated depending on the, depending on the path that I choose. But I want to set up something like that, kind of like being able to, essentially being able to SSH into a machine from another machine, and then, do stuff through the terminal. I want to set up, my CyberDeck ESP32 equivalent of that. It's not going to be a full SSH session, obviously, but I want to set up something like that, something much more simpler, something that allows me to physically jack into um, a black box, and then it pulls up a shell, or even a TUI menu. A TUI menu where I have a bunch of different options allowing me to control various things in the device and read stuff from the device and all that kind of stuff. So I have to read up on these connectors as well. Something that I liked about some of these connectors is they had like a screw sort of thing. So I can jack into the the port and then screw it closed so it doesn't accidentally disconnect. I don't remember if it was this one or if it was the mini DIN connector. Maybe it was mini DIN. This is also actually wait. Sorry. Okay, earlier I mentioned, so this is DIN definitely, and this was also used. This is closer to what was used back in the day for mouse and keyboard. Um, but like this looks similar. Actually, okay, it does mention here MF2 keyboard. For a second, I was concerned that I might have given wrong information. But yeah, yeah. So these are some of the options. There's microphone connector. This is also another very valid option. I need to see how many data lines I can get over this. If it's like, I mean, I don't know if I can actually get, you know, five, six, seven data lines because um, with audio, generally, my assumption is that they're sending out two channel data, and at most maybe there'll be additionally power related stuff. So I'm not sure. But yeah, yeah, I'll have to see. I actually have this connector. This is what my current microphone uses. Oh, this is XLR. Yeah, I forgot this is called XLR. I am not too keen on using this connector though, because of this button here. This is a spring button, and like this can kind of go bad over time. Uh, this I believe is what I was talking about. I don't remember. Yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about. There's like a screw kind of thing. Are we still on the DIN connectors? What is this? IEC metric screw sized connectors. This might be what I'm looking for. Screw sized connectors, because you get the male side of it and the female side of it, and then you can just screw the thing in to keep it tight there. Okay. This was another option, pogo pins. You have pogo pin connectors, you have magnetic pogo pin connectors. That would be a lot more, fancy looking, a lot more modern, a lot less retro, which I don't mind, honestly, because you have uh, you have the magnetic thing in it, and I kind of like that idea. Um, Essentially these are just like spring loaded connectors that you can like push. I think there's a mechanism to lock the thing in place as well. I don't remember, but you can establish contact with this, and then you have something built on top of this, which is a magnetic version of this. So that allows you to connect, one pogo pin connector to another using the and keeping it touched there, keeping it fixed there using magnetic force. Actually, I should look into whether the magnetic thing can negatively impact the data that's flowing through. I should look into that because it's not power, it's data. Well, yeah, mainly it's going to be data. So I should look into whether the magnetic version could cause any sort of data loss in some way or data corruption. But yeah, okay, you know what? That is going to be it for today's stream. Unfortunately, today is a bit of a short stream, but um, yeah, it is what it is. Tomorrow we're going to be back to our regular streams, hopefully, and we'll continue making progress with the ESP32. But that's going to be it for today's stream. I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you all next time.